Well, I'm just feeding the grass here a little bit on the weekly word. I fed it a little bit yesterday and it rained last night and started to jump up. And when it gets to jumping up, I like to feed it a little bit again. This is my winter pasture, I call it. There's about an acre over here. I'm really just sowed down this little paddock area to start with here. And I move my horses over here. Always in the past, I would sow it 2 or 3 days before I moved them out of it. Let them stomp it in the ground real good. And then move them over to the summer pasture side. By about the middle of May, this comes up so thick and pretty. I'll mow it the first time. It looks like a golf course. And then after that, it starts growing. And I would always bring them over here for an hour or so in the morning, let them get some good, rich, thick, lush breakfast grass. They like to be fed like that, and grass likes to be fed too. But the Lord called me. He said, feed my sheep. And he also said, feed my lambs. Lambs is young sheep, aren't they? So feed the adults and feed the children. He said, they belong to him. Feed my lambs and feed my sheep. But what we preachers are to feed them is to feed them the Word of God. And I've noticed from watching folks that have cattle and literal sheep that when it comes time to feed them, that they don't have to go and start looking for them everywhere, that they know it's time to feed, and they all come and assemble together, and they can't wait to be fed. And that's the way it ought to be for the Christian too. The preachers and people oughtn't have to be looking for you and beating you into the church all the time. I tell you what, I can only compare to my own experience, but when I got saved, you couldn't keep me out of church. I don't know about these Christians today that feel like they're going to live the Christian life and never go get fed the Word of God. Because to me, that's what it's always been about to me. The singing's nice, everything else in the worship service is nice, but it all focuses on the centrality of the preaching of the Word of God, because that's how the Lord feeds us. Somebody's preaching that Word to us. Faith comes by hearing. Our faith is built up. So I hope on Sunday morning it'll be your custom to find yourself sitting in a pew in God's house, ready to receive the Word of God. We'll see you next week on the Weekly Word.